Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the utter chaos that is ensuing as a result of the combination of our vicious right-wing British media and the complete failure of the government to be open and honest to the public about the lockdown. The result is now a right dog's dinner, to put it mildly. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, then please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, this video is on what may well be a very fast moving news topic. There's going to be a bit of a lag between me recording it and you seeing it. But given that it's essentially about Boris Johnson's announcement on Sunday, which won't have happened by the time you watch this, then we should still be good with the general theme here. Because it's about the lockdown and the exit strategy. And yes, the lockdown is not a nice way of living right now. Although you ask someone in Italy or Spain to have a look at our version of the lockdown, they'll think that's luxury. But anyway, we went into lockdown like a number of other European countries of varying degrees and at varying times because we were not able to maintain the test, track and trace. The Prime Minister earlier this week, under cross-examination from Keir Starmer, admitted that this was down to our piss-poor capacity. They had tried to say in the past that actually the science said that we should abandon that strategy. But given that the science is now saying, no, we need to go back to that strategy, they've had to admit that the reason we stopped it is because we didn't have the capacity. But the right-wing press are having none of this. The same press who keep harking back to the stoicism of the Blitz era on this 75th VE anniversary day, which is actually curious. So in this country, normally during this week, we have May Day, which is the first Monday of May as a bank holiday. So it was shifted to this Friday, to mark the 75th anniversary of VE Day. When it was first announced last week, I thought it was very odd. I thought, this is strange. Why are the Conservative government switching the bank holiday to my birthday? I didn't think they liked me. Turns out it wasn't about me, it's about VE Day. And which is remarkable. I approve of that in many ways, although I do find it a little bit odd that a government... VE Day is basically a celebration of the defeat of a bunch of people whose methods the current government seem to be using. A little bit odd from that point of view. But there we go. So the right-wing media like to talk about the stoicism of people in the Blitz. And it turns out that the same people writing these stories are nothing more than the special snowflakes that they are constantly deriding as they stamp their little feet at not being able to get a pedicure and a decent latte. And so last week they ran a campaign of strongly suggesting that the government, with Bojo the Wonder Clown back at the helm, were about to announce imminently the easing of lockdown measures. But they weren't. Boris Johnson, to his credit, warned about the dangers of easing measures too quickly, not just for our health, but the economy as well. The idea that the economy will recover as soon as we lift lockdown is erroneous. It will only do so once we've learned to live with the virus, which we are in no position to do just yet. You could argue we should be, but we're not. And this week in Prime Minister's Questions, Keir Starmer, the new Labour leader, asked Johnson to promise that he won't be asking workers to return until the PPE plan was in place. Boris Johnson agreed and said that PPE would be sorted in the long term. There were no short-term assurances, so no suggestion from him at all that the PPE plan was in place right now. Frankly, clearly is not. Boris Johnson also told Parliament that easing the measures too quickly would cause a second wave and would be a blow to the economy, not a boost for it. These are not the words of someone who is about to announce the end of the lockdown, or even a significant easing of the lockdown. But he was also a little bit careless in his explanation for the regrettable decision to announce the lockdown exit strategy to the nation on Sunday. Rather than to Parliament, he alluded to measures being implemented on Monday. Now, for all we know, those measures would be a tightening of restrictions. We know they're not. Because in addition, we also started getting reports of government communications quietly removing the emphasis of the stay-at-home bit of the national coronavirus instructions. Stay at home, protect the NHS, save lives. The stay-at-home bit is being quietly rubbed out. The result was explosive, if not entirely predictable. Yesterday, the right-wing papers were heralding the end of the lockdown. No longer were they talking about Boris Johnson going to ease measures. No, the lockdown's over. Forget it. It's gone. It's gone. It's all going. Almost all of it's going. The stay-at-home message will be axed from Monday, said the Daily Express. The Daily Mail also said that the stay-at-home message, as well as exercising only once a day, will be scrapped. The Daily Telegraph also joined in by saying people can go out and be free, do what you like, go out as much as you like, it's all fine, it's all grand. In fact, reading their front page articles, you'd be forgiven for thinking that the only element of lockdown remaining would be that bars and restaurants will remain closed. That is the ones that are closed right now. There are some operating as basic speakeasies at the moment. Bit naughty. There you go. But had the government announced this? Were they getting this from the government? No. In fact, these articles were being published before the Cabinet had even met to discuss what they might do next week. The Cabinet hadn't even discussed it. But it's splashed across the popular press now. Nobody doubts that the government were going to ease something next week, though we don't know what. But you can see the situation now. People are being deliberately led to believe that the lockdown is essentially over for the vast majority of our activities. Okay, you still probably can't get that latte, but the pedicure is back on. And what do you think most people would do at being told that the restrictions will be eased next Monday? Behave as if they are now. It's very much like when the announcement was going to be that schools were going to close at the end of a particular week. What happened? A lot of parents they didn't keep their kids going to school for the rest of that week. They said, well, you've announced it, I might as well keep them home now. There's a need to keep them home, isn't there? The same thing will happen in reverse. You know, after all, why wait? If the conditions are right to lift the lockdown, to make the decision, well, why not just lift it now? Is what people will be thinking. And sure enough, and this is purely anecdotal, my own eyes, but traffic is right up now. Right up now. I mean, for the first few weeks of the lockdown, roads were fairly deserted. It was very rare to come across another vehicle, the odd lorry, when I went to do the shopping each week. Last week I noticed a bit of an upturn in traffic, and I thought that might be related to the media plugging this easing of restrictions as being imminent. It was absolutely explosive. And it's not at different times. I'm not going out at different times of the day or week. There's proper traffic now. It's not up to pre-crisis, but pre-lockdown levels, sorry. But there's traffic. The roads are far from deserted. There's a lot of traffic on the roads. It's very old bustling. And at its essence, this is the fault, ultimately, of selfish newspapers. They've done this deliberately. Remember, these newspapers are owned by the sorts of people who are not putting themselves in risk. The Barclay brothers, for example, not only own a private island, that's where they are now. They're not here. They're not mucking in with everyone else. No, they're safe. And they just don't give a crap about their readers' health. They don't care. And their actions are now going to result in many more deaths. But this is also the fault of the government, because they were not open and honest about the exit strategy, as Labour's Starmer implored them to be for weeks. They allowed the media to write the narrative of the lockdown exit. The government lost control by keeping quiet, because Starmer was right. People wanted to know. They didn't want they might have wanted a timetable. It wasn't reasonable to ask for a timetable. No one was asking for a timetable. What we were asking for is a sequence of tests to be met. And in the absence of information from government, they happily lapped up what they were told in the papers, the public. And this is a joint failing. I don't yet know how bad it's going to be. I don't really know objectively how much of an impact these headlines will have caused on people's behaviour. And I don't yet know what the government's announcement will actually be on Sunday. But I am going to suggest that there's probably a good chance that whatever they were actually going to decide is now going to be heavily influenced by the media headlines now, because they have lost control of the situation. And if they can't be in control, then they need to at least look like they're in control. So they will mimic control by pretending that the headlines were broadly in line with their decisions, even though they hadn't even met to make those decisions before the papers were reporting. So that's the situation we're in right now, and it almost doesn't matter what the government announces on Sunday. If it's less than what the papers were promising, there's going to be chaos. If it's what the papers were promising, it's going to be chaos. He could just go up there and do a sock puppet show and it will be chaos. And no more chaos than if he said nothing. You know, the notion has gone out of the window at supersonic speed of the government getting decisions right from now on if they didn't before. Boris Johnson made certain promises to Parliament on Wednesday that he looks almost certain now to be breaking on Sunday. If so, he may well want to see if Dominic Raab will deputise for him again next Wednesday, because I can't imagine Starmer is going to be very pleased with him. But there we are. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. If you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. Until next time, I'll see you later.